Hello, Big Data and AI Toronto. So, today we're going to be talking about how organizations can put their data to work and build, let's call it 10,000 responsible, human centric AI models. Now, let's first start with that title. It's a big title, and that's intentional. We're seeking to provoke a little bit of a reaction. What do we mean by that? Well, first and foremost, we're talking about really massive scale. Um, when we're looking forward to, let's call it an enterprise AI transformation, it's not enough to think about tens or hundreds of models. Truly, the organizations that are going to come out on top of this transformation, they're the ones who are going to succeed at a truly significant scale. At the same time, right, we do know that it is extremely important that it be done right. Done right, not just in the sense of how the business operates, not just in a technical sense, but let's say right by our ethics, right by what we want to create as a future of the world. And since that's what we're talking about in a human centric, in a responsible way, why does it matter? Well, first and foremost, we're entering an economy which is increasingly winner takes all. The advances that we're seeing in the AI and ML spaces mean that the organizations that are able to capture that capability, internalize that capability, those are truly going to be the dominant players in their industries in the years to come. So it's extremely important for organizations that are seeking to maintain their competitive edge that they do maintain that ability to develop AI, to develop ML capabilities at the scale which is going to be necessary. And at the same time, we're all experiencing increasing pressure from, well, our current situation, massive shifts to remote working, massive shifts in consumer behavior. At the same time, the progress of our competitors, the progress of technology is not going to stop. Therefore, there's increasing pressure to do this well and to do it at scale. And so that's ultimately what we're talking about today, what I'm talking about today. But that raises actually another question. Who am I? Citation needed. Who am I to be talking about all of this? Let's actually take a moment just to introduce myself. So my name is Kurt Muehmel, and I'm Dataiku's Chief Customer Officer. Dataiku, we are a software company, develop a platform that is used by more than 300 customers worldwide. We've been at this for more than 7 years, and our singular focus is on enterprise AI transformation. And that's what we've been working on over these years, is building out both the technology and increasingly the methodologies necessary to succeed at the scale that we're talking about here. So how do you actually do it, right? Imagine now you have that ambition to blow out your AI capability from wherever it is today to the scale that we mentioned in the title. Let's say 10,000 models, transforming effectively every part of your organization. Well, you could have a couple of different possible approaches, right? There's one, let's call it the teach them Python. You know, you've got smart people throughout your organizations. They may not be data scientists, but they're certainly data savvy. They might be statisticians, they might be actuaries, they might be quality engineers, depending on your sector and exactly which skills you have today. Another approach, right? Maybe you just want to pay some experts. And there's a lot of organizations out there that say, "Hey, we can do that for you. We'll put a hundred, 200 more specialists, forward deployed engineers who can come and help you. Just pay us enough for it, and we'll do it for you." Maybe a third option would just be to buy some magical technology, right? There's technologies out there, of course, that claim that they can automate all of this, that if you just spend enough money on their licenses, that you're actually going to be able to upskill somewhat automatically their team or your team to allow for you to achieve that scale. Truth is, look, we don't believe in any of those. Just teach them Python. The reality is that to become a cutting edge data science machine learning engineer, that would take years and years for every single individual, of course taking them away from their core business that they're working on today, something that you can't afford to lose. You need them doing what they're doing today, but at the same time you also need them doing more. So we need to find a different way. Pay some experts? Well, it depends how deep your pockets are. If you have the budget for that, and if you're seeking to externalize what might be the key competitive advantage going forward, maybe that's a good solution. But ultimately, the customers that we've been working with, those who have succeeded truly at scale, have sought to do otherwise. And then finally, technology, right? And we're in a position as technology developers to believe that, of course, technology is a huge part of the solution. You need the right technology in order to accomplish the transformation ahead of you. But you should not believe that it is just a matter of buying the right technology. Truly, what we're talking about is an organizational transformation. So, how to do it? The key, and perhaps the most important, the single takeaway that I'd like you to walk away from this talk with, is that what you need to think about doing is how you're going to internalize this capability. By internalize the capability, what I mean is creating the ability within your company to develop these machine learning models, but also to enable your teams to go beyond just teaching them new skills, but to equip them with the right technology, the right skills, so that they can apply the two with their existing knowledge on the business problems that they know that they have ahead of them. And so the key for every organization is to be able to internalize this capability. And what we're going to be talking about through the remainder of this talk is how to do that. Let's start with the two initial critical requirements. What does it require to internalize this capability? Well, first and foremost, we need a decision, right? There needs to be a commitment and a decision to do this, and this, of course, has to come from a sufficiently high level, right? We're talking about enterprise transformation. We're talking about key capabilities that the organization needs to develop. This cannot be something which is done simply in a corner or in a singular center of excellence. This needs to be a commitment from across the company. Now, of course, your organization may not yet be there. In that case, we would have a different talk, and we talk about that in some other contexts as well. How do you prove that this is going to work? That's a different talk, and a different set of challenges that we support our customers on. But fundamentally, right, we need to have a commitment from the top, from the CEO, from the CIO, from the CTO, from the CFO, to ensure that the desire and that the strategy is aligned, that you as an organization will internalize the capability to develop these AI capabilities, and that you would be investing in your teams. And that takes us to the second point, which is that investment, right? Once again, if you wanted to just outsource this, you could. Fundamentally, though, we are convinced that that is not a sound business strategy. Ultimately, the ability to develop and to deploy AI capabilities to fix, to improve, to develop new products, services, and processes for your organization, that is what is going to set you apart from your competition. If Henry Ford decided that he would just outsource the manufacturing of his automobiles to some process engineers, ultimately, right, he would be outsourcing the core value that he was bringing, the core capability. Sure, it's all about designing the cars. It's about selling the cars. But it's also about internalizing the capability to make them. And that requires investment. It requires investment, sure, in technology, but most importantly, in the individuals and the time required to do so. Of course, it's difficult, but the most important things often are difficult. So let's talk now about how to concretely build that internal capability. Towards the end, I'll also share with you the story of a pharmaceutical company that did succeed in doing so, one that we've been working with for going on 6 years now as they've gone through that journey. But let's start with a little bit of the theory around what it would take to actually build that internal capability. First and foremost, we're going to start with the executive decision and support. And once again, I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to ensure that there is alignment on the need to do this, and of course that there's alignment on the need to make that investment. We'll talk also about how to support those executives to ensure that they're getting the information that they need about the progress, about the success, about the value generated by this initiative. The second, I'm going to call this a peer-to-peer chain reaction. If you want to have this transformative effect take place within your organization, and to do so on a short period of time, it's not enough to say that we're going to go in there and we're going to, tell everybody what to do. And just by the force of our will, we're going to bring everybody in line. The individual user and the thinking about the individual user experience is going to be key. And we're going to talk about how you can build individual users into not only, upskilled, highly valuable contributors to the process, but ultimately evangelists, peer-to-peer support to their colleagues. And that's ultimately where you see that exponential growth, which is going to be necessary to accomplish the scale that we're talking about. And then finally, you need to run the project. Look, this is a transformation project. This is a significant effort with multiple work streams, and there needs to be a commitment to follow that. And so let's start breaking this down into some more concrete objectives. First and foremost, on the executive decision making and monitoring, you got to get the executive buy-in. We need to make sure that the executive is aligned with it. We need to be able to provide the executive with the appropriate metrics so that they know that they will be able to have accountability to the success and accountability in face of the investment which will be made. Next is the need for a joint strategy. And this is a joint strategy across the different business units, the different functions within your organization, but also with any external partners that you might be working with, which may be a technology provider, maybe a consultancy, maybe a systems integrator. There needs to be a common strategy. Frequently, when we have seen things go inefficiently, some cases go poorly, it's because there's a lack of alignment at the top level. And ultimately, if we want to accomplish something significant, it's no surprise that we need to have alignment and a shared strategy. Third, at this top level, is the value framework. And this is truly critical to ensure that the value of the initiative is not only understood, but it's quantified, it's tracked, and it's reported. We'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like, but to me, it is one of the most essential links in this chain. Coming down to the peer-to-peer chain reaction, how do you actually set that up? Well, one is internalizing a training capability. That's often where we start with our customers. It's working with them on internalizing a capability for them to upskill their teams. Ultimately, right, the skills that are needed are not just generic machine learning skills, Python skills, data science skills, whatever. It's not something that you can learn online. It's not something that you can learn out of your local context. In fact, what is needed is a contextualized training explaining what new capabilities are going to be required, how they can be applied, what new tools you'll have at your disposal in order to do your job better, with more impact, more efficiently, and to be able to leverage the best that this new technology landscape has to offer. Next is the user pipeline. We're working with a lot of our customers on planning what it's going to look like to bring on not 10, not 100, hundreds, and in some cases increasingly thousands, looking forward to potentially tens of thousands of users. Once again, this is an organizational transformation challenge, meaning that there needs to be a strategy built around which users, which groups, which departments, which skill sets are going to go through that training capability at what time and for what purpose. Importantly, right, we always want to orient this not towards just becoming proficient on a technology, not just being able to say that, hey, we've done X or Y, but really to be able to say that we have changed the way in which we do our business, that we changed the way in which I, as an employee, as an individual, am able to have impact on the bottom line of my employer. And ultimately, that's what we want to be able to track. But again, that comes back to a question of strategy and, of course, the decision to invest the time necessary to do that. Third here on the peer-to-peer chain reaction is the user community. This is where the peer-to-peer aspect really comes into play. Once again, if you want to succeed in this organizational transformation, you need to bring your employees along with you. We need to have them supporting one another. We need to be able to have them bring more people into the fold. That's ultimately where you're going to light the fire, be that spark that takes shape and basically runs wild throughout the organization, such that you have individuals saying, it's impressive what you've accomplished. I see what you've accomplished. I understand what it does for the business. how can I do the same? How can we start doing that in our part of the company as well? Many of you work for multinational organizations, organizations with more than 50,000 employees. In order to have an efficient development of this capability, truly internalized, there needs to be a successful user community. Additionally, right, once you're getting started, this is a transformation project which may take years. As I said, the story that I'll be sharing in a few minutes, we've been working on it all together for 6 or more years. Now we have others where it's more of a 2-year plan, but ultimately it's going to take time. And so, what do you do during that time? Do you just tell people that there's a promise of some great future and you got to believe us? In parallel to building that strategy, to building the user pipeline, you got to get some lighthouse projects kicked off. Projects which illustrate what the potential is going to be and which illustrate how it's going to benefit the organization. You got to do that in parallel and you got to do that quick. Otherwise, people are going to start asking questions. I thought, what is this going to deliver? When's it going to be ready? You need something to point to say this is what it's going to look like, but scaled out. Then perhaps most important, overall monitoring and reporting, ensuring that there is feedback loops to say, this is what we've accomplished, this is how we're on track. We'll talk a little bit about that in more specific, but ultimately what we're talking about is building a chain. We represent this not as a hierarchy where one thing is more important, where there's a foundation and everything else. This is an essential chain where every link is required for the integrity of the entire chain to be guaranteed. We can't have this without executive buy-in, but we also can't have this without the user community. We can't have it without the framework, the value framework. We also can't have it without the user pipeline. Everything is necessary. Everything is intertwined. Ultimately, though, this may look like a lot of work, and sure, it is. Anything which is valuable is going to require work. But what it creates is ultimately a seamless experience for the end user, which is what's going to be key to transforming at scale. Is having users multiplied by thousands, having thousands of positive experiences as they go through this transformation effort, and also, of course, alignment with the executives. But let's take a look first from the user's perspective. What does that actually look like concretely for our colleague here, Greta? Well, first and foremost, right, often they'll get brought into an information session where the strategy and the value is explained. Why are we asking you to change? Then, right, let's bring them into an online portal where they can come in, customize, fully branded, right, so that we can have that experience, and a point of reference to understand what they're going to need to do. First, then we start with doing some online training, customized to their needs. Follow that up, though, with the hands-on training so that they have the opportunity to answer those questions. There, they can start getting into the online user community, connecting with others, asking questions, getting answers from their peers, and seeing what their peers are accomplishing. As soon as it's possible, as soon as it's safe, we would love to get back to in-person events where we have the opportunity to bring people together, to share a meal, to share a drink, to share a story, to build that enthusiasm so that they can be invested and continually learn more. We've seen cases where we've had somebody who is a business analyst, somebody who is an actuary, somebody who is an engineer, a mechanical engineer, really step into what might be considered a data scientist or a citizen data scientist role and really be able to harness the potential of all of these new technologies and apply them to their business, to what they know. A key element in this is going to be certification, ensuring that people have the opportunity to show what they've learned and for management to track that there is a true return on this investment. But ultimately what we're building toward is that evangelization, so that you have these enthusiastic users who are excited about the new impact that they're having in their company. They're excited about their new value and their new skills. They're telling their friends about it, and that's where you get this true chain reaction where 1 becomes 3, 3 becomes 9, 9 becomes 27, as you grow out this capability internally. And that's where the thing takes off. Now, from an executive perspective, right, we need to ensure that there is executive and continued executive support as the initiative grows and as the success grows. We see four pillars of value. And this is coming from our value assessment framework developed by our business value consulting team. Here we see first the actual output of the AI. That's going to be a quantification of the number of models, the number of use cases automated, the time to value. Then there's actually the direct value of the use cases. Is there revenue increase? Is there cost optimization? Next, right, are there gains in efficiency and the team efficiency? And then finally, how are we mitigating risk? We're doing this at scale. Are we doing it in a responsible way? Do we have control over that? And are we ensuring that all the appropriate voices are being brought into the process? Taken together, this gives you the value framework with the appropriate inputs from your organizations on what that means for you and what value that holds for you. We can build out then the automated impact tracking that says that thanks to these efforts, thanks to this time spent, thanks to the outputs of the work, this is the value generated. And this is then going up to the CFO, to the CIO, potentially to the CEO, depending on the scale of the organization, to say, this is what we've invested, this is what we will continue to invest, but look at what we've accomplished already. And that, of course, is where you truly achieve that AI transformation at scale. So now in the last couple of minutes, what I'd like to do is share a very short story about one of our customers, a global pharmaceutical company that decided nearly a decade ago to invest in the analytics and AI and build their future as an organization. It started small, but they got that buy-in, they built the chain reaction, and they've now achieved this remarkable scale. So the story starts in 2012, actually prior to the founding of Dataiku even. But there, we started in a world where basically it was a few individuals who were working hard, trying to understand what was going on across the organization in AI, in machine learning, in advanced analytics. It was a lot of time spent in a in a economy class airplane seat, traveling around the world from their offices in New York to Paris to Tokyo and back to understand what's being done and to start bringing together those different users. Ultimately, from there, right, they got to a phase of really critical unsiloing. And this is where we started to see the chain reaction start to take shape. That's extremely important because it's thanks to the chain reaction that they were able to bring more users on, get further buy-in, and ultimately build out that goal that they had, which was to achieve that level of transformation that we've been talking about. Finally, right now, we can say that they've achieved the remarkable scale that they've been working so hard on over the years. This is quantified in what might be, if I remember accurately, the most recent statistics: tens of thousands of models, hundreds of thousands of data sets, thousands of users involved in the process. And this is not, to be clear, thousands of data scientists. This is, a handful of highly skilled people, tens of data scientists, something on the order of 50 or so, but supporting thousands of additional users who may not have that same skill level, but still have incredible value to the organization. And so ultimately, right, that's the goal that we're building towards. Now, looking towards the future as we go through this, through the process again, right, from that unsiloing through the scale, we reach a phase where it's actually getting embedded in every single process. And this is where we achieve that transformation, is when the processes of machine learning, when the processes of AI are embedded in every business decision, in every product, in every process within the organization, when every individual has a potential to contribute to that process. That's the sort of transformation that we're looking forward to. And that's ultimately is what we're building. Now, this might seem like a lot, and I want to emphasize that it does require that investment and that commitment. It's not possible, or at least it's not a good idea, to try to outsource this. And to close, what I would recommend is simply to emphasize that, yes, it is possible. We've seen it happen. We've seen it happen in multiple cases. It is something which is within the realm of feasibility, which also means there is a risk that if you're not doing it, somebody else may be. Which brings us to the final closing point. More than anything, what you need to do is start now. There's opportunity to do this. There is time to do it still. You can still be on the cutting edge and the leading edge, but that window is going to be closing. And ultimately, right, if you want to build that scale, it's going to take time. There's no time like now to start. Thank you so much for your attention throughout this talk. If you have any questions, I will be more than happy to take the questions now in the live discussion. And really, once again, I encourage you to know this is possible. You need to start now, and it takes those three things: that buy-in, that process, and that peer-to-peer chain reaction. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kurt. Let's see if any questions have come in. Okay, first one. Can you provide a few examples of the lighthouse projects that might allow us to get organizational and executive buy-in?
Sure, sure. I think that's a great question, given the importance of the Lighthouse project, and the overall success of the initiative. What you typically want to look for is a couple of things. One is feasibility, meaning that the problem is actually, let's call it, tractable with some machine learning, some AI techniques. Another element of feasibility is, of course, data availability. Right? We want to start with something where we have essentially the raw material already available for it. Um, and then importantly, I think another element which is easy to discount is the actual value and the impact of that project. You want to make sure that it's going to be something that has impact on the bottom line. And then I would say the third quality, right, is going to be the buy-in and the support of the business unit that you're working with. You want to identify allies early on in the transformation project. Folks within your organization who maybe already are bought into the vision, and who are going to help to evangelize, to articulate that value and the transformative potential to others, to their peers. And so the answer really depends on each organization. Often a lot of the, let's say, the space of the use cases that have good potential are often in the customer analytics, marketing analytics, where it's easy to quantify some of the value. But that really may depend on the organization. But really what you're looking for is, let's say, technical feasibility, business value that you can establish, and importantly, a strong ally in that organization who will help you in that transformative effort.
Yes, allies and good impact on the bottom line.
Absolutely, yeah.
We've got another question in here. Can you please provide a few examples? Oh, no, that's the one I already read. Sorry about that. In terms of budget required, what are the differences among these three ways? Your solution, student, expert, etc. Do you understand that question?
I'm not sure that I do. Yeah, I'm not sure that I entirely do. I think I can say some words, high level around, the budget required. It's true that there's an investment which is going to be necessary across the technology scope. That could be the software platform, and of course that's the space that Dataiku operates in. But it's also the underlying infrastructure, and it's important to take a TCO, a total cost of ownership perspective on that overall investment. What I would say, though, is that probably the largest organizational commitment does have to be on the organizational and people side of the question. Really, that's where you need to ensure that the executive buy-in is there to motivate people and to explain the need to change the way that everyone is doing their job. I mean, that's not an easy thing to do, and that's where it's in some ways easier to spend the money than it is to convince the organization to come along with you.
It is. It's generally easy to get people to buy in. It's really difficult to get people to actually move along and truly adopt it. So
exactly, we're creatures of habit, and if you've built your career doing things in one particular way, that really is going to be the main challenge is bringing people along into a new way of doing things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been part of that. I've felt that, and sometimes the design is not good. So what you end up getting isn't quite what you expected, which makes that adoption even harder. So people might want it, but if you haven't nailed it for them, they're not going to do it.
Absolutely, right.
Thank you, Kurt. Thank you for being here, and thank you to everybody else for tuning in.